One and go.
All right, welcome to Smoke and Clouds. I'm joined here with my guest here, Steady Steve of Strategic Protective Services. It's a security company here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and just going to be interviewing him, getting him the local business perspective as well as his experience in the security industry. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, what made you go into the security industry?
Well, years and years ago, when I was a teenage kid, I was on a volunteer fire department and working as a first responder. Essentially, I spent my whole life in uniform, cadets, the whole 9 yards.
Nice.
And so when I left, I was kind of listless. What am I going to do with my life? I enjoy the uniform side of things. I enjoy this aspect of life. And then I thought about the military, and then I thought, well, we'll coast along. The original plan was to go to school. And then I decided just to do a part-time job, security, which ended up being a full-time job working for Edmonton City Centre under initial security.
I know that
years ago, and I was hooked. I was hooked from the beginning. Essentially you have the best of both worlds. You get to meet the public, you get to have great conversations, meet some interesting people, and when you arrest individuals for a crime, you take them back, charter and caution them, do all the paperwork, and then you hand it nicely to the police and say, here you go, please do all the dirty work for me. And they laugh at you and they grind their teeth and stare at you. They take all the documentation and issue a PTA on your behalf. You get out scot-free. You don't have to worry about any of the hard work.
Yep.
So and then from there it's just been an adventure. Loved every second of it since.
Perfect. So, with your experience in the security industry, what has been your primary focus in it?
It's a very interesting question. For me, it's the primary focus has been the adventure.
Yeah.
When I first started out, I was just a know-nothing uniform guard walking around, and it was very eye-opening. From there, I took a little brief break shortly after about maybe 2 or 3 years doing that, and then came back and I was a bylaw officer for the city of Rossland, and I disliked that every aspect of it, because you are the guy who tickets their cars. You're the guy who impounds their dog, who's running around and peeing on trees in public. I really disliked it, and I was very lucky to get with a company called Selkirk Security Services, and it worked on a hydroelectric dam during the Olympics. It was targeted as a terrorist target, and so our job was to sit there and make sure nothing goes boom.
Oh wow!
And in itself, it was a fun job. It was really great. We got to eat great food, meet some amazing people. BC Hydro is a phenomenal place to work as a contractor, and it was a great resume pattern. And then from there, I decided to carry my adventure into something a little bit more unknown, and I went the PC or plainclothes route and went loss prevention.
Okay.
Where you're running around in plainclothes and arresting people for theft and fraud.
Now, when you're working as an LPO, were you one of the agents that had to get bonuses for arrests, or how did that work for you?
Oh, absolutely not. And that's the one thing that you need to be very, very careful about in the loss prevention world. If you have somebody who's working on bonuses, per se, what you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, look, your paycheck is privy upon how many people you arrest. And there are some very strict and strenuous rules required prior to making the arrest. So if you're on bonus and you arrest somebody and it's a false arrest, you're a liability to the company, a liability to the public, a liability to the client, right?
Yeah.
So in the long run,
it does seem like it is encouraging to arrest people as opposed to trying to solve the problem through a customer service approach, talking to the person, of course.
Customer service is the wrong term, actually. Customer service, if you look at a retail establishment, really there's two sides to it when you look at loss prevention. There's the sales and operations side of it, and the loss prevention risk mitigation side.
Okay.
The risk mitigation side of it is occupational health and safety, your store layout, the people you're engaging are more the associates. As a loss prevention executive or a loss prevention agent or a ORC investigator, everybody who walks in the front door is automatically a liability, right? They could slip on the front vestibule, break their leg. Now you have to deal with insurance, right? They got other problems you have to deal with. So for us, customer service is finding the criminal element, arresting the criminal element in a manner that is pleasing to the human eye, if you will. So you're not like in a huge brawl. Processing them, issuing them Trespass to Premises Act, and seeing if you can get them charged.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's when you're looking at loss prevention, that's the side of it. Anybody who says customer service and loss prevention, they're looking at it more of an operational side of things, right? Okay. The best way to put it, if you had a store designed by a loss prevention officer or agent, you'd have shelves full of pictures of product that they go, that one, and the sales associate goes, absolutely, sir, runs to the back and brings you a box. On the inverse, a corporation that's ran by somebody who's operationally mindset will have no EAS pillars, no greeter, no LPOs, just maybe a security guard walking around making people feel safe. No merchandise protection like EAS wires, no merchandise protection like EAS stickers. You're looking at a world where like anything goes. So essentially, yeah, it's a different mindset of looking at things. With me personally, like, I mean, I see the balance of both. You have to be able to be customer friendly as well as loss prevention minded. So yeah, brought you down a rabbit hole. Hope you don't mind.
No, absolutely not. Actually, I'm gonna change it up a little bit. So over the past few years, there's actually been an increase in the number of security companies I've noticed throughout Edmonton, a lot smaller agencies. What do you think's the cause of this?
A couple things. The first is we've had a major economic downturn, and a lot of the people who I know personally through the industry who instead of being focused on the industry itself, having fun, going out, meeting people, arresting people, making a difference, they started getting families, they started getting kids, and let's face it, an LPO can't really support a family, and so they pulled out and they went into the bush. I did that myself for a year as a medic on an oil rig for about a year. And so now with this economic downturn, you have these guys who are coming out of the bush saying, okay, what am I going to do now? I mean, I've worked as a rig hand for the last 2-3 years. I'm going to go back to doing what I like, which is security services. And so they take their money and they invest it into a security company. Is it a good thing? I don't think so. I won't speak bad of my competition. There's some really phenomenal companies out there that do really great work. But there's also a lot of fly-by-night companies that'll just take anybody. It doesn't matter how illiterate they are or how unfit for duty they are, and they'll throw them in a uniform and chuck them on a door, right? Just to make a little bit of capital for themselves. So that's what's causing the surge in the industry. Now, with that surge, for me personally, I don't see them as competition. I've niched myself a little bit differently. I work more on the premium side of the security industry. With better trained agents and better standards for my employees. Yeah. But that being said, it's interesting to watch.
Do you mind just explaining a little bit more about the standards that you keep your employees to?
Sure, absolutely. So, first and foremost, if we employ anyone with our company, we sit them down and we do a written test. We want to make sure that when they file the proper paperwork, it doesn't get to a defense attorney and the defense attorney says, this individual you arrested is clearly not guilty because you made these mistakes on your report. Also, insurance lawyers too. Oh, we're not going to cover that water damage to your property because of this initial report we received from your first responder, your security person. So that's paramount. Is that English literacy, right? The second part to it is a situational awareness. In our industry, especially, like, first and foremost, I'm going to draw two distinctions. There's your generic security, which is somebody sitting at a door making sure people walk in and walk out. And there's your tactical security, which would be your LPOs, your mall security. Those people whose sole job is to go out and arrest, sole job is to go out and do customer service, ensure health and safety. But getting back on track with that, if you have somebody who's working in a tactical environment and all of a sudden everything hits the fan, right? Your one subject becomes 3 subjects. Your one subject you find out is suicidal. Your one subject you find out has multiple Canada-wide warrants out for their arrest, and they become extremely violent. They have to be able to accommodate and react accordingly with the situation. So I want to make sure that the guys that I put out in the field aren't going to A, hurt themselves, B, hurt the public, or C, hurt the client's interests. So we have a situational awareness test. That's a major part of it. Also, we draft from the best of the industry. We have we have an interview process to find out if they're experienced in the industry. Right now, we're seeking people who are EMS trained, ex-fire, ex-police, ex-militaries is key too. They're amazing. Mm-hmm. People who have been in the industry who will know how to react accordingly. And then at the conclusion of that, we make sure they have a sustainability training program. One of the videos that I did on our series on Steady On focuses on that training aspect because unfortunately in our industry, someone will get their ABSG training. Mm-hmm. They'll go and they'll get their basic Alberta security training, and they'll get thrown into a situation where they're ill-equipped to deal with. A medical emergency happens. Right? What do?
They have no idea.
They have no idea. And so the client looks like garbage, the company looks like garbage, the agent looks like garbage. So with us, every month they're required to do one basic training course. Every half month they're required to do an intermediate training course, like Wicklander Zwelski, interview and interrogation. Once a year they're obligated to do a larger training course, like they're an emergency medical responder and get it ACP certified. That way we can offer this better quality to our clients. Because essentially, what's our product, right? Like, I mean, let me ask you a question. You go into a McDonald's. Mm-hmm. You order a Big Mac and fries.
Yep.
They come to you with a bag full of flour, 2 eggs, right?
Yeah.
Ground up hamburger, jar full of vinegar, a couple cucumbers, a head of lettuce. Are you happy?
Well, technically I paid for what I got, but no, not really.
You got a handful of ingredients, right? And that's the sad thing. You have these security agents and guards who can do phenomenal things. Mm-hmm. They're just ill-equipped. The ingredients haven't been mixed properly and treated and cured, and that'd be training and experience. Yeah. Right. And once you get that all together, you get a nice Big Mac, right? And our agents really in this industry are a product. Mm-hmm. Right. You have to invest in them. So yeah, that's what kind of establishes us different.
All right. Now, Strategic Protection Services. How long has the company been around, and how has the experience been just running the company so far?
Just shy of 2 years.
All right.
Yeah, just shy of 2 years. It's been very interesting. It's been very interesting. It's very difficult as a small guy coming into the industry. You have these huge competitions. These nationally known companies that have flooded the market. They have the market share. They're willing to go in for a lower dollar value just to secure that market share, to push guys like me out.
Economies of scale.
Essentially, yeah. So you're who would you go with? The preferred security provider who is a couple dollars an hour, less an hour, or would you go with somebody who's new to the scene, who is a couple dollars higher an hour, but provides a higher quality, right? The other real big issue that we're encountering is that we've established ourselves as a niche, right? We go the premium side. Back to the hamburgers scenario. If you go to a fast food establishment, yep, you get a burger and fries. Everybody will go there if they're hungry. Right? Mm-hmm. We want to provide the steak and lobster, right? We want to make a pain-free problem-solving solution. So it makes us a little more difficult because you got to pay for the steak and lobster solution.
Yeah, for sure. Now, just want to broach a bit of a subject. How has your experience been with the Solicitor General's office here in Alberta?
Solicitor General's office, it was very, very good, actually, very effective. There's some things I think they're lacking in, which I'll get to, but the process of getting a license was pretty pain-free. Go through your checklist very carefully. Ensure, I had to do a couple changes on use of force policy, etc. Yep. Make sure you read it perfectly. You can get through, not a problem. The issue I have is that it doesn't seem like they have a lot of after licensing support. There's a couple. I mean, a prime example in the news. Lucky 73.
Okay.
I believe is
the most recent security event.
Yeah. If you look back, because I keep a very close eye on the marketplace, on the industry, they were advertising security guard wanted. I don't think any fault to them. They don't know the legalities behind it. In their mind, we're hiring someone like we'd be hiring a cashier. So they hire an individual, non-licensed. Right? The guy obviously does not have a corporate license, and it results in a homicide and a robbery. Right? These processes have been put in place to safeguard the client, and they should have been, in my opinion, they should have been a little bit more proactive on engaging it. I know of another location in Wetaskiwin that has the same thing. They have an individual who's not licensed, working there. He's not licensed, and his company's not licensed, working in a location. And so, why did I invest my money for these safeguards when they're not policing those safeguards appropriately? Aside from that, it's a great plan.
The process developed. It just seems that the regulatory standards aren't there.
Yeah, well, that's to be expected. I mean, it's relatively a new program. I remember when they first came out with the licensing process, and it was a nightmare for the poor people because they had this huge infrastructure that was put into place, and they had a couple people running around trying to make sure everything runs great, and it took a lot. It was a very painstaking process for them, so it's growing pains. Right?
With the police being able to ask to see security agents' licenses, if they so requested, has that, in your opinion, made a dent in the unlicensed situation for guards?
Absolutely not.
No,
absolutely not. That's a problem. I've worked I've worked since the implementation of this process. I've never been asked once for a security work license from any member of any law enforcement body, and that would be Calgary City Police, Edmonton City Police, RCMP. Anybody who responds, never asked for that. And when they ask for ID and I provide them that, they're like, I don't want this. I want your driver's license. It's not recognized, right? And also it's because of the way the act is laid out. They're in charge of their own regulatory body. They're in charge of policing these licenses, and the local law enforcement, they'd rather clear the call and get on to the next one because they're very taxed for time, which is understandable. I mean, you got 1,000 things going on in the district. You can't really, spend a lot of time investigating one thing for an act that's just being created. I think that'd be an ideal situation. Ask for a license. Who do you work for? Okay, can I see your security worker's license? It would be a good little
standard procedure for police officers when they're picking up suspects from security guards.
Absolutely, and it'd be a great way. I don't know. I know the penalties are a lot of them are fines. It'd be a great way for them to generate that revenue if they could somehow work in conjunction with it. The fines are astronomical, so the investigation process would be pretty high.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you very much for your time there, Steady Steve.
Yeah, you got it.
I hope your business stays steady.
Yeah, sure will.
I hope it also grows.
I hope so.
I wish you all the luck in the world, and I hope you have a great day.
You got it.